It is 6:03. I'll call to order the November 4th meeting of the Amity City Council. Please rise and join me in saluting the flag. Thank you. Tasha, will you take roll first, please?
Present.
Councilor Michael Blanco.
Present.
Councilor Rachel Blanco. Absent. Councilor Chad Luker.
Not on Zoom.
Absent. Councilor Caleb Shields.
Here.
Councilor Alice Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Rachel.
Here. We will start this evening with the consent agenda. We have budget versus actuals and minutes from the regular city council meeting and the work session meeting of October.
Motion to approve the consent agenda? Second.
I have a motion and a second. I just want to add, though, that we need an amendment to the minutes of the regular council meeting. It actually was our first meeting where we started at 6, not 7. Can we have a motion as amended?
Motion to approve the consent agenda, changing the hour held from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. We'll move on to citizen comments and questions. We have no one in the audience with us tonight, and no one appears to be online. We have the Yamaha County Sheriff's Office report. Was there any questions? I would just ask if we could remind our deputies that when they're able, we would like to have them here for the meeting. And then also, can we work on getting the graph page of the report onto the website?
Yes.
Moving on to old business, we have none, and our new business starts with the Comcast franchise agreement. So we held a 10-year franchise agreement since 2015 with Comcast of Oregon, Inc. That term expired. Nathan worked with them for a updated franchise agreement. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight or that we should know about any changes?
I'm not aware of anything specifically. Really quick, can I check? Can you guys hear us on Zoom? Ross, are you able to hear us?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. Is it pretty quiet?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to make that a little easier. Maybe that'll do it? Is that
Yeah,
a
that's
little
better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah, I was hoping Comcast would have joined us tonight. As far as I know, they were planning to. There's not too much, especially not too much of interest in the changes to the franchise agreement. Mostly it was updating language. There were a couple of sections specifically that the city requested a change on. This was the section on the transfer of the franchise right. Basically, we didn't want it to be transferred automatically to somebody that purchased Comcast. It gives the city council a chance to consent or at least acknowledge that franchise right is being moved or transferred to a different entity. And then there's also kind of an interesting provision on the in section 7.3 on the use of a public hearing to investigate a violation of the agreement. On the city attorney's advice, that wasn't necessarily the city's favorite section, just because it left it very open and said that the city council was basically going to investigate violations by the franchisee, in this case Comcast. And the city attorney recommended having better guidelines in there for arbitration and other more formal procedures if needed. But we found kind of a middle ground there where we can move it to more formal if needed, but they still wanted a public hearing as a kind of a first step. So, but the updated language also gave some more guidelines on what that public hearing should look like and how the city council could actually hold that hearing. So, other than that, it was mostly updating, just that standard contract language. So.
Did the rate increase at all from the last?
So there's not a rate increase. There were a few things I learned about cable franchises specifically, which to me is still a little bit interesting. Comcast, at least in my mind, is a telecommunications, a broader range. But our franchise agreement with Comcast is cable specifically. And there's the Cable Act by the FCC governs a lot of the ways in which cities can regulate cable services. It limits our franchise rate to 5%, which is what it's been. We can't increase the rate or kind of consider a difference there. It also, the part that I learned that seemed the most odd to me, we can only charge the franchise fee on their cable services specifically, and any additional services that they deliver via that infrastructure, whether it be internet or home security or stuff like that, is not charged the franchise fee. So it's just like cable television. And so that was interesting to me, but that's the Cable Act. And so those are the restrictions there, and I'm not sure what else we can do about it.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Question. Did you check with any other companies for better deals of any sort, or?
I didn't specifically. The franchise agreements are typically non-exclusive, and this one is non-exclusive. So any other cable company could come to Amity and install their infrastructure. Mm-hmm. This just allows Comcast to continue operating their existing infrastructure.
Okay.
So,
And we do have other franchise agreements with cable, don't we? Or is it just?
do we have another?
Is Ziply just internet?
Ziply's.
Or
I
Hunter?
don't think Ziply's more like a second or third tier. I don't know if they'd.
Yeah, who else does actual cable television?
I'd say Ziply is telecommunications, Hunter is telecommunications, and then we do have an agreement with Astound, but again, they're broadband, and they don't actually have any customers in town, from what I understand. So
Hunter's about the only one I can think of who might even qualify because they have their own physical hardware.
yeah, they're at telecommunications, and we have a separate franchise agreement with them. So.
And then my
That's
only
okay. This is on
question is that it indicated that our planning department needs to make Comcast aware of any developments or plans within the right-of-way and give them the right to use or inspect the open ditches. Is that something that we have a system about? If they're expecting that every development, they are notified? It was in our responsibilities. I'm trying to find. The franchising authority agrees to include the grantee in planning processes for any new subdivision. At a minimum, the franchising authority agrees to require as a condition of issuing a permit for open trenching to any utility or developer. We have to let them know 30 days in advance. So we are the franchisor, but we issue right-of-way permits. We don't issue all building and development permits. Do we have a system to let them know 30 days in advance? It is section 3.8.
I don't know if we have a clear system. We do typically involve at least your main utilities when talking about subdivisions and developments. I'm not sure if there's requirements somewhere, but typically like the Amity Oaks development, as far as I know, is required to, provide underground power. They've submitted drawings that include provisions for underground power, and
But I guess this is just us agreeing to include them in the planning process. And at a minimum, give them 30 days notice. So we have to do it. So do we have that as part of a checklist, or should we?
we certainly should, and I don't know how,
I mean, often we don't even have 30 days notice when that's gonna happen for ditching,
yeah.
if it's someone else's development.
I'm trying to think of how that has gone with the
It's-
Amity Oaks.
And it says in the permitting process.
If I may,
Yeah.
this is David Harden from Comcast.
Hello.
So we're currently discussing the Comcast franchise agreement. And Mayor King had a question about the provision in there for access to open trenches. Basically, that the city agrees to include Comcast, the grantee, in the planning process for new subdivisions, and requires a condition of issuing a permit for open trenching to any utility or developer that we give Comcast 30 days written notice of the availability of the open trench. The question was whether or not the city had a clear process in place to notify Comcast of that. And I'm not currently aware. We haven't processed many subdivisions, so our processes around that are fairly lacking, just because we haven't had many happen. And so are you aware of how that?
So essentially, we have a team of representatives that's their whole line of work is to reach out to developers within our footprint and be in contact with them so that when new construction's going in, they notify the other utilities. If there's something that's actually going to go underground, that doesn't go on our radar. But what we do ask is that once the city gets a hold of the other utility providers that are perhaps going underground or in the right of way, that we receive notification if it's going to be open for a limited amount of time, because we don't want to go back and dig the ground up again to inconvenience your residences, have it done up multiple times. But again, we have a team that goes out and finds those things. So essentially, if for whatever reason the city were to find it beforehand and have an actual date, we would ask as a courtesy that you reach out to us. But there have been many instances across the state of Oregon where our team hasn't known about it ahead of time. We had an instance in the city of Barbados where Facebook found it and run to some of the subdivision developers' attention and made sure that the trenches would be open so that we can access that. And then I'm not 100% familiar with the ordinance here, but I do believe we have some overhead by the admission to the
So just internally, I would recommend if we are saying that we will have that as a condition of issuing a permit, we just have it on the planning checklist
No.
when utilities are happening.
Yeah, the previous generation of the franchise agreement with the city of Amity just had a shorter term notification. And the teams that would have to get involved after it wouldn't have been large enough. But so that is essentially the case.
I just want to make sure we're equipped to hold up our end of the deal as well. Is there any other questions about the agreement itself?
Motion to approve the proposed franchise agreement and authorize the city administrator or mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
So do I have a motion to read the ordinance by title
Oh,
only?
sorry.
That's okay.
Motion to read ordinance number 689 by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to read ordinance 689 by title only. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Nathan, will you read the ordinance to us by title only, please?
Absolutely. Ordinance number 689, an ordinance adopting a franchise agreement with Comcast of Oregon I, Inc., and repealing ordinance number 646.
Now, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the proposed franchise agreement and authorize the city administrator or mayor to execute the agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 689 and approve the proposed franchise agreement and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Do we need to do a second reading and vote for an ordinance to pass at one meeting?
As far as I know, no. I meant to print out that language and have it with me because we have a couple of ordinances tonight. If you give me a second, I can find it, but I don't think so. Apologize, my internet is struggling. As long as there was unanimous approval by at least a quorum of the city council that was present.
Is that our charter?
Yes. It's under legislative authority, talks about ordinance adoption. I'll read the specific language so that everybody knows what I'm talking about. Section 16 of chapter 4 of the city's charter talks about ordinance adoption, and it says, except as authorized by subsection B, adoption of an ordinance requires approval by a majority of the council at 2 meetings. Subsection B says, the council may adopt an ordinance at a single meeting by the unanimous approval of at least a quorum of the council, provided the proposed ordinance is available in writing to the public at least 1 week before the meeting. The ordinance need only be read by title only.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. That saves us a whole nother step.
No, thank you. That's one.
We've done it in the past just to cover our bases, but I
Yes.
think we have a good understanding of that now.
And there's still certain things that might come back for a second one, like the comp plan. We might spread over 2 meetings just, again, to cover bases. But
Yeah.
make sure people have a chance to see it and understand what's going on. But.
Sounds good. So we're good on that one. And we will move on to the next item of new business, which is the audit report.
Hello, everyone. Again, Russell Reese with Gerard Siebert Pollard CPAs. Pleased to present the results of the City of Amity's audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2025. I'm going to preface this by saying this is just going to be a very high-level review of the reports that were issued by our firm, and then probably just open it up to any specific questions that anyone has on this final draft. I'd also like to mention that if you don't have questions tonight, but want to discuss anything within this audit report, please feel free to contact me at my office at any time by phone or email, and I'd be pleased to go through any specific questions that anyone may have on this report. But again, it contains a lot of information, and so I'm just going to try to keep this very concise, go through the reports that we issued, and then open it up to any specific questions that anyone has. And I'm basically just going to kind of follow through the table of contents instead of trying to hit everything in the audit report. So again, this year, City of Amity went through a standard financial statement audit under generally accepted auditing standards. And I think this is the second year in a row that the City of Amity also went through what's called a single audit because of the fact that the city expended more than $750,000 of federal assistance this last year. So the report as a whole contains our independent auditor's report on pages 2 through 4, which is the standard audit report. And then beginning on page 40 and going through page 47 contains information on the single audit portion of the engagement. So again, just to recap, under the independent auditor's report on pages 2 through 4, big picture is the City of Amity is receiving an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. So again, during the course of our testing this year, there was nothing that came to our attention that the financial statements were not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We also did not note any internal control matters that needed to be reported either to governance, or if they rose to such a level, they would be included in these multiple reports that we include in this final audit report. So again, the independent auditor's report on pages 2 through 4, clean or unmodified opinion, no internal control or compliance matters noted. We then skip down to the single audit portion, again, starting on page 40. And under the single audit, there's 2 additional reports that your independent auditors issue. The first is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. So again, this is not single audit specific, but in the course of a single audit, the financial statement audit is required to go through an audit in accordance with government auditing standards. So those standards, again, are during this process or this section of our engagement, we're looking for any internal controls that might not be followed, which may result in a material misstatement of the financial statements. And again, we're pleased to report, consistent again with last year, that we did not note any internal control matters or any resulting compliance matters as a result of that additional testing over the financial statements. The final single audit report is the independent auditor's report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance required by the uniform guidance. So again, this year, if you quickly, we'll go ahead and quickly just turn over to page 40. Page 40 contains this CFA, or the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. So you'll note on this schedule that, again, the city expended about $1.8 million in federal assistance under the Department of Treasury's Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Revenue Funds program. Again, federal assistance number 21.027. So the CFA report's the one program. This, again, is our one major program that was required to be tested. We go through a matrix of testing based upon certain compliance matters that are directly linked to this program. And in turning to the final single audit report, which starts on page 44 and concludes on page 46. This report would be the area where, if we did find any compliance matters or any related internal control issues as a result of some type of a non-compliance issue under this federal program, it would be disclosed in this report. As you read through the report, it's basically going to state that we did not uncover anything that needed to be reported in this report. So again, a cleaner, unmodified opinion on this report as well. Flipping over to page 47, there is a required schedule of findings and questions costs that's included in an audit in accordance with uniform grant guidance. And again, this basically gives again a quick summary of the results of the audit. So again, starting at the top, it states that the auditor's report expresses an unmodified opinion on whether the financial statements of the city were prepared in accordance with the U.S. GAAP. Number 2 notes there were no significant deficiencies reported, no material weaknesses. Number 3 notes that there are no instances of noncompliance material to the financial statements of the city of Amity. Number 4 notes that, again, no significant deficiencies in internal control over major federal award programs, and also no material weaknesses are reported. Number 5, the auditor's report on compliance for the major federal award programs of the city expresses an unmodified opinion on all major federal programs. Again, this year we only had the one major program. Number 6 notes that any audit findings that are required to be reported in accordance with 2 CFR section 200.516A are reported in the schedule, of which there aren't any. That would typically be question costs. The 2 main areas are question costs and or expenses that are not an approved expenditure under the program. Number 7 notes that the program tested as a major program was the coronavirus state and local fiscal, and I'll fix that, fund, and that's under federal assistance number 21.027. Number 8, the threshold for distinguishing Type A and Type B programs. This is where we're looking to identify if an entity has multiple federal programs. This matrix is utilized to determine or to identify the major programs that will be selected for audit under the single audit. And that threshold, again, was based on the total level of federal expenditures, 750,000 or above would denote any major program. And number 9 is interesting. I get questions about this all the time. It notes that the city of Amity was determined to be a low-risk auditee. To qualify as a low-risk auditee, again, an entity has to have gone through 2 prior single audits. And basically, besides going through the 2 prior single audits, there cannot be any significant, I think, question costs or material weaknesses in internal control noted in those prior 2 reports. And if an organization does qualify as a low-risk auditee, it lowers the dollar amount of the programs that need to be tested. But again, with the city only having the 1 program this year, it had no effect because of the fact that, again, we just had the 1 major program that we were dealing with this year. So again, the city was determined to be a low-risk auditee. The final report, so we've talked about the overall financial statement report. We've talked about the reports issued in accordance with the single audit over the 1 major program. And then finally, we have our final report in the back, which again is the independent auditor's report required by Oregon state regulations. Again, this is the required under Oregon minimum standards. This is also a compliance and internal control report. So again, besides doing the normal testing for the financial statement audit, the testing required under the single audit, for Oregon, auditors are required to do some additional compliance work in the areas of the depositing of public funds, looking at indebtedness limitations, restrictions and repayment, the adoption or the budget process, budgets legally required under ORS Chapter 294. We're looking at insurance and fidelity bonds in force. We're looking at programs funded from outside sources. We're also looking at the spending of any highway revenues used for public highways, roads, and streets. We're looking at authorized investment of surplus funds. So again, if entities have excess funds, are they being invested in accordance with authorized and allowable investments under ORS Chapter 294? And then we're also looking at public contracts and purchasing under ORS Chapters 279A, B, and C. So right below this listing, it's going to note that in connection with our testing, nothing came to our attention that caused us to believe that the city was not in substantial compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grants, including the provisions of Oregon revised statutes, as specified in Oregon Administrative Rules 162.10 through 162.10.320 of the minimum standards for audits of Oregon municipal corporations. So again, no compliance matters noted during the course of this additional compliance testing. And then right below is the internal control over financial reporting. Typically, if there's a compliance matter noted up above, there's typically a weakness in internal control. And again, that would be disclosed in this section of the report. And in looking at the report, you're going to note that we did not note any internal control matters. So no compliance issues and no internal control matters over issues related to audits in accordance with the Oregon minimum standards. I believe the only thing we have left to do is we're going to assist management in putting together the data collection form that goes to the U.S. Federal Clearinghouse. It's about a 3 or 4 page form that's uploaded, which again, kind of in a micro shell, or it includes again the results of all the various audits that took place during the year. There's a section where we complete an additional schedule of federal assistance. We also then included within that report any issues that were noted or any findings that were noted, any internal control matters that were noted. So again, this year's data collection form is going to be unmodified or clean. So again, no issues noted. So we'll put that together hopefully this week. And then again, the city has until, let's see, 9 months after year ends. What is that, March, to submit that to the Federal Clearinghouse, but we'll have it done well ahead, within the next couple of weeks. And again, the audit report is due to the state by the end of December this year. But I think for the most part, I think there might be one slight change. We have a council member whose name we need to correct. But I think other than that, the dates that will be used in all the reports will correspond with most likely tonight's date. We'll issue a management rep letter, which will contain today's date. That date will also be used on the independent auditor's report, the single audit report, and also the report in the back under Oregon minimum standards. So I guess at this point, I'll open it up to questions. Just again, in conclusion, I'd like to thank Nathan and Natasha for assisting this year. We were able to get in, obtain the information that we needed quickly, and again, looking at the reconciliations of the major account balances appeared to be done timely and accurately. And so we were able to get in and get out as quickly as possible and get the report drafted and written up. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to be a team member this year. And at this point, I'm going to open it up to any specific questions that anyone may have.
Russell,
Thank you for the overview. Go ahead.
when you referenced the city official name that needed to be updated, was that in the independent audit report? Because I noticed that list was outdated.
Oh, yeah, I think the initial draft that went around was not an updated version. So we did update the version, and I think the counselor, we have Chad Lucker listed, but I think is it Chad Luker?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. So we'll fix that. Yeah, so the first draft that went around, I think it was the unedited version from the prior year.
Right.
So it has been updated, yes.
And then the only thing I wanted to mention was in the single audit in the program, you had that blank on number 7, and it is recovery fund is what should be there. But when you look up, it has that R filled in as revenue on the actual schedule of expenditures. So you might want to look through and make sure that recovery is used.
Oh, you're right. Okay, yep. Nope, I do have that flag too. So let me mark that.
I only saw there that one other place, but
Nope, you're right. So I've got that flagged, and then I'll flag page.
I think it was 47.
Yeah, play page 47. I will yeah, we'll flag that as well. And then we're going to update the counselor section. And then so I'm hoping to have a revised I'll have a revised audit draft back to management tomorrow with these changes. And then going forward, we'll put together that data collection form. So again, we got plenty of time to get the data collection form in, plenty of time to get the audit report to the state of Oregon by the end of December. Again, it should be ready to go here in the next week or so.
Great. Does council have any questions on any other information presented or in the audit? So I will ask for a motion to approve with the small corrections mentioned.
I move to approve the auditor's findings and approve Amity's fiscal year 2024 through 2025 audit with corrections as noted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the auditor's findings and approve Amity's fiscal year 2024-2025 audit with the corrections as noted. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. We are set, and I will wait to sign the one that comes with those corrections.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the week,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, city staff, for working with them to present us this nice audit as well. Our next item of new business is community partner utility credit. And we have a resolution in front of us. Nathan, would you mind giving a rundown on this
Yeah.
before we start?
I can give a quick background. In October, the Amity City Council received the request via an email to Mayor King for some utility assistance for the Amity Assembly of God Church. They provide shower and laundry services to members of the community, specifically homeless members of the community, or those struggling with utilities at their homes, and allow them to shower, do a load of laundry. At the council work session in October, the city council discussed the request, and it sounded like, or it seemed like something that the city council was interested in. And so we've drafted a resolution for the city council to consider that kind of outlines that community partner utility credit. And the proposed resolution sets the credit at 3 times the residential assistance rate, limits eligibility to nonprofit/501c3 organizations that provide public water and sewer resources.
Thank you. So I just wanted to open it up to any questions or concerns. I know we had quite a discussion about this at the work session, and then this was drafted, as a result of that. But if there's things that were missed or you feel need to be included, or I don't feel like there was a clear consensus on how much that credit we wanted to offer, and so something got thrown in there, but that is something I wanted to make sure was on point with council's intent as well.
I think the language saying that it can be up to 3 times, and then the other language that it's kind of just dependent on the availability of funds and the other language that you have at the end there. I think it does a nice job laying out what I remember talking about.
But as far as policy and implementation, staff's directive would be 3 times
Yeah.
unless
unless we-
budgetary
yeah.
changes for the fiscal year.
And do we need to say in here that they would have to reapply every year? Is that just like we're adding them into the application that already says that it's an annual renewal program?
That's a good question. The way I intended it was, this is an option within our utility assistance
Within the
program.
existing program.
Meaning that they would have to reapply every year. It doesn't specifically say that, but that was the intention.
I don't know that it would hurt to call that out specifically. I would rather be redundant than remiss.
Yeah.
So that would be adding like a section 4.
Yeah, and just I mirror the language that's on the,
Or should it just be maybe in addition to section 2 under eligibility,
eligibility will be reassessed.
or application, those seeking a credit will need to reapply
Yeah.
each fiscal year.
Yeah, that seems easier than a new section, just a bullet point.
Seems appropriate to me.
I agree.
Do we have confidence that that can be added and we can approve it as amended, or would council like to see exact language come back into the resolution? Or would we like to decide on the exact language before we approve?
I'm comfortable with the direction that we gave without needing to see it again, just with that added bullet point of reapplying every year.
If I can also just, there were a few different organizations that we talked about at the work session. This specifically says registered as a 501c3, or equivalent nonprofit entity, I guess. But, so that wouldn't include like schools or fire districts or other government entities. Just wanted to make sure we captured that intention too. So
Did you say that it would or would not?
it would not include schools.
Oh, a school is not
It-
would a school be considered an equivalent nonprofit entity?
That's
So-
Or do we have to decide?
So I guess this is where it caused like a bit of problem for me, is that they aren't a nonprofit, they're already taxpayer funded.
Yeah.
So essentially, like our water customers or our tax base that pays the city is also already
Paying that.
paying both those entities to provide their public services. They're not nonprofits.
I don't think they should get credit for that.
That makes sense.
Double.
Yeah.
So I'll look to council members. Councilor Blanco,
If they're already being supported in what they're doing with tax dollars, I don't think additional tax dollars should be stacked. So I would leave schools out of that type of entity.
Councilor Shields.
I'm leaning that way as well.
Essentially, because we're taking from the city budget and allocating to this program. And so in my mind, those entities can also take from their budgets to support programs as they see fit with their budget appropriations.
Yep.
Okay. Is that the clarity?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that.
Thank you for
Yeah, thank
bringing
Because
it
there
up,
was-
because it
We need to
was,
talk about it, yeah.
it was narrowed down to 501c3. I don't feel like the 1-year eligibility or the 1-year application falls under the eligibility section though. Because it's saying you're eligible of this and you're eligible of this, unless you say,
Could we say a community partner credit will be awarded on an annual basis?
or eligibility will be granted on a annual basis with reapplication needed?
Yeah.
Something like that, okay.
rather than a bullet point just in the instruction line there.
I think in the final paragraph, it makes sense to add it.
Like of the whole thing, of the credit amount section?
No, just of the annual application requirement.
Oh, just add a sentence in the future rate paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah, annual adjustments will be implemented through the typical budgeting cycle with a renewal process completed by,
I think a separate sentence, or just,
Okay. Staff, do you feel comfortable with that this could be approved with the discussed addition and you could get it in there into a resolution?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion before I ask for a motion? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve resolution 2025-17, a resolution expanding the utility bill assistance program for community partners with the discussed changes.
second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2025-17. Any further discussion? Oh, with additions? With discussed changes. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next, we have Travel Oregon Grant Resolution. So this is a budgetary consideration. In June of this year, we were awarded $120,000 from Travel Oregon for an Amity on the Map project. We will also be committing $30,000 from our USDA grant funds as a match because this project also satisfies the MOA necessary for that project. We did not get it in our budget, but as you can see in the background here, we can adopt by resolution approving expenditure of those grant funds. Bless you. Nathan, is there anything else you want to add by way of explanation or clarification?
I don't think so. Just, I was happy to find that because it was a grant for a specific purpose, we could do a simple resolution rather than a full budget amendment. So if there's questions there, I'm happy to work through that. That was a learning process for myself as well, but
I'm not seeing any questions. Do I have a motion concerning this resolution?
I move to approve resolution 2025-16, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of grant funds for Amity on the Map project.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2025-16, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of grant funds for the Amity on the Map project. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Our next item of new business is the DEQ mutual agreement and order. Nathan, can you give an overview, please?
I can, yes. In September of 2024, DEQ assessed a civil penalty against the city of Amity's wastewater treatment plant. There was a variety of violations, but many of them included basically exceeding the city's limits for BOD and TSS in the wastewater that we sent to the Salt Creek. Some of that, I believe, was reporting error, but we can dive into the numbers if you want on each specific violation of which ones actually make sense and which ones I think might have just been reported wrong. Either way, we acknowledged the violations and then requested that we be allowed to use up to 80% of the assessed amount to help prevent future violations. DEQ has a program where they allow us to do a supplemental environmental project. And for smaller jurisdictions or smaller entities, like the city of Amity, they allow us to use that 80% of the funds to improve our system. That way we're not running into future problems but they get a little more say in how we're helping fix our system with that 80% of funds. During the 2025 discharge season, well, 24 to 25, so last discharge season, the city of Amity again received a few violations. It was limited to a handful of times, but DEQ assessed an additional penalty of $3,450, bringing the city's total penalty to $21,427. So the city may reduce the penalty paid directly to DEQ to $4,285 as long as we also spend a minimum of $17,142 on completing that supplemental environmental project. I proposed a couple of different projects to DEQ, but ultimately we settled on I&I repairs. DEQ really wants to see us put some money and effort towards inflow and infiltration repairs. We identified, or Public Works and I worked through the CCTV footage that we've taken of our sewer main lines in the past and identified, I think we identified 8 different repairs that were kind of high priority, seemed to be contributing a fair amount of infiltration into the city's system. And were reasonably easy to repair, not easy, but straightforward. Whether it be like specific points that needed repaired and we can put in a patch or whatever that looks like. So we submitted those 8 proposed repairs to DEQ and got a quote from them, and the SEP has been approved. So this mutual agreement in order just finalizes that the city will pay the $4,285 to DEQ and then also spend at least $17,142 on that SEP project.
Does council have questions?
Are the repairs something we're gonna do in-house or that we're gonna contract?
So we're contracting them out.
Okay,
No, the repairs that we're proposing to do are CIPP is the terminology for it, cured in place piping. You can get down a rabbit hole of how exactly it works and the machinery and equipment used to do it, but basically they can drive a little sleeve in there and inflate it, and it'll be like an epoxy coated fiber sleeve or plastic sleeve. They inflate something to push it against the walls, and then either it cures over time, or I think sometimes they use UV light to accelerate the curing process, and that hardens, and supposedly it's supposed to harden and be better than the original pipe. So
It's like a tooth filling. They have to use the light
sounds
to
really cool to
cure
me,
it.
especially that we don't have to dig anything up.
They
That's
do with
really good.
arteries.
it's honestly a really cool process, and It's been good that DEQ really pushed us to take kind of this next step. It's something that we've been working towards for a little bit, but getting specific cost estimates and an idea of what those repairs will cost makes it a lot more reasonable and easier to plan for. And so I think you'll see the city do a lot more of those repairs here in the next little bit.
So question, the business we have before us is to approve the agreement in order and authorize you to execute the agreement. We're obligated to spend the $17,142, but what cost estimate do you have on the 8 repair points right now?
Yeah, so the current cost, I included one cost estimate in the SEP application. That one ended up not being very helpful. That company came out, we looked through the 8 different repair spots. For a number of different reasons, they're not able to help us with all of the repairs, but they referred us to a company that can, so they're gonna help us with 2 of the repairs. In fact, I think one has already been done. There was a manhole at the wastewater treatment plant that you could see the water coming from the city in on one side, and then just from the side of the manhole was also sheeting in groundwater. So they relined that, and we're able to hopefully limit that inflow right there. But so they've done that, and there was one other spot that they were going to be able to do, but the original company I reached out to has a limited type of equipment. They can only go like 100 feet away from a manhole, and they have to have a manhole on both sides kind of thing. They recommended a different company that has more of a robotic capability, and so they're able to go further from the manhole. They're able to go in places where we have one section where we have a manhole, and according to my map, there's a clean out on the other end, but it's been paved over or something, and so it's no longer visible or usable for that matter. That isn't as much of a limitation for them. So because they have extra equipment, I guess. The current total cost estimate that I'm seeing for that was, I think it was $8,000 for the company that could only help me with 2 of the repairs. And then the company that could help me with the rest of the repairs, we were looking at $36,000. That's also, we changed one. We had a section where we had proposed 2 point repairs or 2 spot repairs. There were other problems on that line, but we said, these are the 2 priorities. What can we do for these 2 spots? And they came back with a quote for the 2 spots, and then also just to reline the entire length of sewer main line, the entire 225 feet. It was more reasonable than I expected. That was the big one. So the entire line is I think $18,000. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but it was more reasonable than I expected to be able to reline an entire 200 feet of sewer pipe. And so I think that's the direction we're going to go, is reline the entire pipe. That way we can cover some of those other smaller deficiencies and not just have the situation where we fix the points, the problematic spots, and have the water find somewhere else.
Well, if we already have tools in there, why not fix all of it?
The cost to line the entire thing was about the same as the cost for 4 point repairs. So if we had done 2 more, of the smaller spots, then it would have been equal.
So I guess just to provide some context for my question, for one, I wanted to make sure we're going to spend the $17,000 because that's what we're approving. Also, starting 2 to 3 years ago, we started allocating specific funds for I&I. I think we started with like 35,000, and annually, when council has approved a budget, we've boosted that number up, knowing that we needed to, address this I&I issue. I very much dislike that we are getting into it through DEQ, crackdown, but I'm really happy to see it happen, and I just wanted to reiterate for the council, we've already approved that Nathan and Public Works can work together to find a good, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 in these I&I repairs. So that's not all gonna happen through this project, but hearing that we're, are gonna have 8 big fixes, I'm really excited that that progress is happening. And so I would just recommend personally, if in the work that happens, it gives you insight into how we can keep the momentum up for repairs, let's do that. Don't wait until DEQ is on our back. It's a good opportunity to just keep doing the camera work and keep doing the assessments and keep doing the, we probably don't have funds to address the largest repairs, but if we can do incremental progress, it's better than nothing. So, is there any questions on the exhibits? So we have the agreement and the final order, had our notice with the civil penalties, the application in there, and this would just be approval of the agreement and final order and execution of said agreement. Good, yeah.
I move to approve the proposed mutual agreement and final order and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the proposed mutual agreement and final order and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Our last item of new business will be the DLCD Wetlands Technical Assistant Grant. And this is a resolution authorizing the application. Just for a bit of background, it was in your packet. So DLCD is hosting a Wetlands Technical Assistant Grant. We could apply for this to support the development of a local wetlands inventory. It would work to develop an inventory of the wetlands across the city's urban growth boundary and getting it approved by the Oregon Department of State Lands. Having a local inventory of likely wetlands will be helpful in completing subsequent steps for the comprehensive plan updates, urban growth boundary amendments if desired, and generally protecting the natural areas within the city of Amity. Questions or concerns about approving this grant application? If none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-18, a resolution authorizing the city's application for DLCD's Wetlands Technical Assistant Grant Program.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2025-18, a resolution authorizing the city's application for DLCD's Wetlands Technical Assistant Grant Program. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. That was our last item of new business, and we will move into the public hearing portion of this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're holding a public hearing regarding the application number 2508-30LA, legislative amendments to the Amity Comprehensive Plan. After the city council hearing is closed, the council will deliberate on a decision to approve the proposed amendments or approve the amendments as changed by the council. I will now open the public hearing. Now I will cover the preliminary legal matters. The city administrator will review and summarize the material in the staff report. All testimony and evidence that speakers give us must concern the approval criteria, which is the statewide planning goals or other criteria the speaker believes are applicable to the proposed comprehensive plan amendments. If your testimony would be, I always stumble on this word, repetitious, there we go, right? Yeah. But you would like the opportunity to appeal the decision once it's made by the city council, you must sign and submit a public testimony sheet before the hearing is closed by the chairperson. Only those who have appeared before the planning commission or city council in person or in writing will have standing to appeal the decision regarding the proposed comprehensive plan amendments. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence with sufficient detail to give the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue means that no appeal may be made to the Land Conservation and Development Commission based on that issue. Before we have a staff report, I'll ask a few questions of city councilors and the audience. Does any member of the city council wish to declare a potential or actual conflict of interest or bias?
What do you mean by bias in this instance?
Do you feel like you have a preconceived bias in the issue of the comprehensive plan that you don't feel like you can make a fair decision? Okay. Does any council member wish to declare? Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the city council to hear this matter? Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the impartiality or disclosures of any member of the city council? We didn't have any. Okay, that concludes our legal matters. So testimony tonight will be in the following order. We'll have a presentation of the staff report, and then testimony from the proponents, testimony from opponents, and then testimony from neutral parties. With that, let's proceed to this staff presentation.
Thank you. Jim and I can keep this relatively short and limited to kind of questions. I mean, I'll give a brief overview, but this is the comprehensive plan. It's the draft that we've been working through with the City Council and Planning Commission for the last year and a half. Pretty excited to get to this point, to update and adopt an updated comprehensive plan for the city of Amity, and have those goals and policies that really help direct the city's direction for the next 20 years. So excited about that. The only changes that I want to note, the city council had a work session on the comprehensive plan. I think it was 2 months ago now. I think the September work session was the comprehensive plan one. And we went through it pretty effectively, pretty thoroughly. There were a few changes that the city council recommended, most of which were kept, but there was one change that at least I took away from the city council, and I may have slightly misunderstood this one. There was a demographic section that I think the city council didn't necessarily love. And so I removed it, and the planning commission recommended that at least some sort of demographics be included in the land use section. And so I reworked the language a little bit, but ended up adding it back in, including a couple of more things, a couple of small items about like income. And then I did also add a note, and this was based on the Planning Commission's recommendation, that just to kind of point out that the demographics included in the comprehensive plan are a snapshot from the American Community Survey of 2023, right? And so with all of the limitations that are included in the American Community Survey and from 2023. So just a note in there that any new decisions should be based on current demographics, current community demographics. So having them in there provides the snapshot, but it doesn't necessarily relieve staff or anybody else from doing the evaluation of what the demographics of the community are at the time of a land use decision. And so that was what we wanted to get across, and I think the language I put in there does that, but we can look at it as well. The one other change that Jim originally brought up, our city planner originally brought up to the Planning Commission, and we kind of talked through with them. On goal 14 is the urban growth boundary goal. One of the policies there, well, there were two policies, 2A and 2B, and one said to expand. I need to go find the language. That way I'm not just guessing here. Let me find it really quick. It won't take too long. Sorry.
Which planning goal?
So it's goal 14.
Yes,
Oh, the one about preserves surrounding agricultural.
Oh,
and we changed
yeah.
last one.
Yeah. So policy 2 is is that the city will regularly review and update its urban growth boundary. 2A was to ensure an adequate supply of buildable lands, and 2B was to preserve surrounding agricultural areas. Jim pointed out that if you're going through the urban growth boundary process, you can't technically do both. You can't always preserve agricultural areas and ensure an adequate supply of buildable lands. So what we talked through with the city, with the Planning Commission, was a language change on that agricultural areas portion. So instead of preserving surrounding agricultural areas, the city will consider surrounding agricultural areas in accordance with urban growth boundary provisions as we work through that process. So the Planning Commission still wanted to recognize the importance of agricultural areas, how they play in Amity and Amity's economy and community, but also that we can't both preserve them forever and have the adequate supply of buildable lands through the urban growth boundary review.
Now, I have a question. If someone is opposed, are they being opposed to the technical aspects that are already written, such as that double speak you just mentioned? Or can they be opposed to the plan itself?
You mean when we are voting to approve it?
Yeah.
So we can get further into this during our discussion portion because this is just the staff report portion.
Okay.
But I will say that your vote is to accept this as our comprehensive plan amendments.
Okay.
To accept the changes as they've been presented, just in its full form.
Okay.
Those were the two changes from the Planning Commission. So other than that, unless there's further questions, I don't know that staff has much more to report on. We've gone through the comprehensive plan quite a bit. I'm happy to, Jim and I are both happy to answer any additional questions though and talk through anything else.
Okay, before we move on to public testimony, does Counselor have any brief clarifying questions of the staff? No. Okay. I don't, well, I will just ask, do we have any public testimony from proponents? Okay. Do we have any opponents that wish to speak? And is there any testimony from neutral parties? Just gonna make sure I give everyone the opportunity. Does the staff have any further comments or clarifications that they would like to present? And while the public hearing is open, does council have any questions for staff that should be brought up in the body of the public hearing? Okay. The public hearing is now closed. I will open discussion for deliberation by the council. The council can ask any additional clarifying questions of staff or any comments or concerns about the comprehensive plan and its amendments in front of us. I would just want to bring up, I think there might have been some misunderstanding on my want to take out the demographic section. I never wanted to take it out, and my issue, which is still there, is there's just one portion of the age groups that's missing. I dislike the way it's written as a list. Like, there's this many people from ages 0 to 7. There's this many people from ages 8 to 18. I don't like that list way it's written, but it's fine. But the issue is from about age 44 to 64, it makes up 25% of our population, and it's just not in that list. So it's just odd to me, but it would not make me not want to adopt this. And I'll triple check that it's still like that, but
I mean, it says the ages 25 and 44 make up over 34% of the population.
okay, and then 44 to 64 is not in there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then because it jumps to 65.
Yeah. So every single range is listed except for that. They would all equal to 100, but it's just,
I'm trying to think, because I went through and I like checked these statistics a couple of different places. I'm not sure if it was a factor of, internet outages or whatever, or something more with the federal government. On the day that I was reviewing all of this, I was unable to get to the census website itself.
I was unable to get to it today even.
Okay.
I was
It's,
kind
yeah,
of looking at it
yeah.
for it too, and it's out of
It's
commission
just not there.
for the duration of the shutdown.
So I'm limited to the statistics that are on things
Yeah.
like Data USA, some of those others that you're like,
And they're
okay,
not exactly going to align because that
Yeah.
American Community Survey or whatever it's called is what is cited in this. So I get that. I just, for the record and to clarify, I don't have anything against having demographics, and I think it's important. And I also appreciate what the Planning Commission chose to add to that as clarification of it being a snapshot.
So it's the 25% of that age range.
Yeah. But it's 25% of our whole population. I mean, there's context clues. Anyone that reads it can figure
You
that
could,
out.
if you wanted, like, you could do the math and figure out what's missing, but yeah.
So again, yeah, not,
That was throwing the whole thing away.
no. So this is just the deliberation. So if there is anything you are not in agreement with, you think needs to be changed,
I mean, I don't see the issue in adding in that age range and percentage, making that change. That way it's a complete list. Or is it that we can't get the confirmation of that data? I mean, doesn't it have to be 100% of the population?
that's what I'm thinking. But no one is going to read our comprehensive plan and notice or take offense that their age range is not explicitly listed either.
I mean, they'll probably just think it was a clerical error.
Do I have, okay.
I mean, if it's from 2023, wouldn't RDI also have that in their statistics that they gave us?
If they use the same census
could that be our confirmation if we find it there to update this?
Well, so for staff clarification, would you be able to use all the statistics listed, do the subtraction, and add in the last age range?
I mean, potentially, yes. I think the reason I didn't end up touching it is because I was unable to get the census website itself. And the censusreport.org doesn't break it down specifically in those categories, in those same categories. And so it shows that over 65 is 8%, and under 18 is 25%, but then the website lumps together 18 to 64. And so I wasn't able to confirm it. They do have an area where they break it down into further age ranges, but that's every 10 years. So they have 0 to 9, 10 to 19. And so I was hesitant to mess with those numbers, right, in case they were rounding or stuff. I'd be happy to just put the 25% in there, but
Either.
You could always just wait on the possibility that one day the government will open again, and then we'll be able to contact the Census Bureau and check on these numbers.
I think that we have confirmation in that they are reporting on 100% of our population. And so if we take all the reported numbers away, it would be what is equal to that age group.
Yeah, I feel like we could put it in there and use that as a inference based on the data that we do have. And I think as far as a rounding error,
Or
we
we can
have
leave
a
it
couple
as is.
places where we've said about, and so I think it's okay to be within a small margin of a rounding error.
It would be the least of ambiguities.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the page with the recommended motions, and this is, what is the procedure for this? So this would also be by title only for if a motion were to be made.
Says read aloud.
And could we say read aloud by title only?
There's not an option in the recommendations for it.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling a lot of pages.
It's also just on the agenda item.
Did you want to see it? The mayor?
No, I got it. So if we're looking to move forward, I would need a motion for this to be read aloud or read aloud by title only.
With changes or without changes? What was decided on that? With changes?
It doesn't matter. Whatever, but the first motion needs to be to either read it or read it by title only. And then after that's done, we can have a motion, and then that would be up to whoever wants to make a motion.
Motion for ordinance number 688, an ordinance amending the Amity Comprehensive Plan to be read by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for ordinance 688 to be read by title only. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Nathan, will you please read ordinance 688 by title?
City of Amity ordinance number 688, an ordinance amending the Amity Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you. Do I have a follow-up motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 688, an ordinance amending the Amity Comprehensive Plan with the following changes, amending the demographic section to include the missing age range and percentage.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 688, an ordinance amending the Amity Comprehensive Plan with the following changes to include demographics of the missing age range and percentage. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes unanimously. This decision by the Amity City Council is a final decision, which is the passage of an ordinance. An appeal period to the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development will follow the ordinance adoption. We'll have a second reading at a future meeting, if needed.
Does it go back to planning now? Does we need a change?
No, we're the final decision makers. We could switch it all up and, I just want to make sure we leave that open if you feel like we need to have a second reading adoption, but it was voted upon unanimously, so we should be good. Okay. That is the end of our action items, and we'll move on to department reports. We will start with our city administrator. He submitted a report. Is there anything you'd like to add? Any questions for our city administrator? Hearing none. Tasha, we got your city recorder report. Do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Can we get a quick Public Works update, Nathan, if there's anything in addition to what you reported in your report?
I don't know that there's anything much. I know Josh has been doing great. We've been happy to have him. Clint and Greg are both excited to have another person in the rotation, taking on weekend and evening rounds. But other than that, things have been moving forward. Our big focus has been water treatment plant like normal. So.
And then the Fifth and Stanley project, do we have?
So oh, yes, thank you. That's actually, if I can, I'm going to give a little bit more of a broader update on Fifth and Stanley project. So the Fifth and Stanley project, we've been working with the contractor. They're getting ready, but they've had some material delays. Some of the materials just taken a little bit longer than they thought to come in. I think there's also a bit of a miscommunication on what exact specification we were asking for on a couple of things. I think we figured out the miscommunication, but still taking a minute to get all of the material in. They think they can still have the project done within the final completion date. They might be pushing it on the substantial completion date. However, the big however in this, so ODOT, a small portion of our project is a water line across 5th Street in the Stanley intersection. And that's one, because the capital project is there, right? And if we can get across, anytime we can get a new water line across a highway, it makes future projects easier. However, that takes us through ODOT, and ODOT is going to require that we pay back a fairly significant amount. 15 feet either side of the trench is their typical standard. And so we're working on getting a cost estimate for that change, that additional paving. The other trick, though, or the other issue, ODOT doesn't allow anybody to pave until March 15th. So we're outside of their paving window. I have talked with the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, Michelle Bilberry at Business Oregon. She thinks if we need the extension, we should ask for it, and they might be willing to grant another amendment to get us to May or June, right? We've shown substantial progress. It's just those last little requirements that are they have to be done a little bit later. The other thing we could consider is just doing that final paving portion with city funds. There's not much left in the loan anyway after the contract amount. But I'm trying to figure out how much that paving is going to cost. Because if it's a significant amount, then I want the safe drinking water help.
Are they able to do the work and leave it plated for until March?
So they wouldn't leave it plated. They would leave it as a trench resurfacing. So basically
Drivable though.
it's a temporary resurfacing, yes.
Okay.
It's drivable, but ODOT does not consider it final until we come back and both grind the trench area, but then also 15 feet to either side, about 2 inches down. And then you pave back all of that. It's kind of, essentially, it just happened on Goucher, where
But-
Goucher meets Nursery.
But they've given us like the permit and permission to do that work?
Not yet, not until we agree to do the additional paving.
And we're still waiting on a cost estimate?
I was waiting on a
that.
cost estimate from the contractor to know what kind of cost I was looking at come that paving time. The cost estimate, or the change order associated with repaving Nursery in the area of Goucher was almost $50,000. But I think there were a couple of other things in it. I think it was a little bit wider area, maybe even a little deeper than this one would be. So I don't think we're in that range. I don't think we're in that ballpark. I think it's going to be closer to 15 or 20. But I don't know, and until I know.
So, I don't want to speak for all of council, but we have for a very long time wanted to make sure that this got done by the end of the year. And now it seems like it's something that's out of our control. It's not necessarily the contractors or our contract. But my concern is it's not a given that Business Oregon will amend our thing, which is due by December 31st, that loan agreement. So I feel like it would be best to ask for an amendment right now, knowing that amendment would have to come before the council at the December meeting to be approved on time. Because if we wait and we find out that we need to close our loan by the end of the year, it's going to be $50,000 to do the paving. That's on the city's budget. That's the entirety of our repair budget for a year. So if there is any way that we can get it within the loan funds, I feel like that would be best, even if it meant asking for an extension that we really don't want to ask for. But I would like council's input on that.
I think asking for an extension and then maybe not needing it is better than wishing we'd asked for it and not having the opportunity. I agree.
This loan has been open since, I believe, 2022, and it was supposed to be a 12-month period. So I'm 12 or 18 months. Personally, I have hesitation to ask any more of Business Oregon and the Safe Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, but I feel like we're in a position where it's our best. It's in our best interest to ask.
Yeah. And then if they say no, we
figured out. So I'm not seeing any opposition to just asking now to initiate an extension. Counselor Shields?
Just my pride.
I know, I know,
It hurts.
I know. I feel you on that. Nathan, I hope you feel this is an appropriate spot for us to give staff direction, but from the sounds of it, I think that would be more comfortable with you attempting an amendment and extension so that we can get it back in December and keep things going as fast as possible and have a contractor ready and permitted and everything to pave on March 15th.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, as far as the ODOT permit, I don't really have a choice, so we're gonna agree to do that work anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of how the permits work, right? So I'm not worried timeline that way. We also, I did want to note the loan has until January 31st, sorry. So we do have the January City Council meeting too, if we need an amendment there. But I will certainly ask either tonight or tomorrow morning. So I will ask for that amendment. The other thing, just for council to kind of be aware of and know, if my budget estimate is right, this one's been a weird project that we've used for multiple different things. But if my budget estimate's right, after the entirety of the Haworth's contract, we have like $20,000 remaining in the loan funding. So it's not a lot, and if the change order was significant, it may not even cover everything, but it would certainly help. And so it's just to be aware. So.
And then one more public works related question that I didn't ask earlier that had to do with a agenda item. Our initial set of DEQ violations, and then the ones that were second, they went all the way through like this discharge season. I think I saw April of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a change in the nature of those? Like, are we pinpointing a more specific issue now? And do you feel like moving forward, we will continue to see the same type of, because it shouldn't be like just a reporting or like decimal in the wrong spot.
Yes. I'd say you can see the first year had a wide range of violations. And that's why I say some of them were reporting, some of them were others, some of them were actual violations, but there was a wide range. And part of that, to give context there, your public works superintendent left, and your city administrator was, I think, preparing to leave, right? So you had less supervision there, and it was right as Greg was starting, shortly before I started, and the two public works employees at the time, one of them kind of took it on, wasn't given the resources and training and structure that they needed, and thought they had it, and turns out they just didn't. But unfortunately, nobody knew for several months until DEQ found my email on the website and said, hey, I don't know if you know what's going on, but here's all the wrong reports that we've gotten. So there were a number of things to kind of address and fix, but largely, yes. Largely, we're kind of boiled down to the violations that we got this last year. I'm always hopeful that we can avoid them, but it is possible that we get similar violations again.
Is it a treatment issue, a capacity issue? Is it the I&I?
It's typically related to the I&I.
Okay.
I think most of them, I'd have to go back and look through them. Most of them are BOD and TSS loading, which is basically the amount of BOD and TSS that we send to the river in any given day, or in any given week, in any given month. They have limits on each of those time periods. And when we get tons and tons of rain, We tend to just send as much water as we can to keep ahead of it, and we don't pay attention to, okay, we're approaching our daily limit, turn it off in the evening or slow it down, right? And
Do we have the ability to do that or not really?
Somewhat. We're working towards doing that better and better. You can make estimates based on the sample results you get. One of the things that we're trying specifically to help with stuff like this is moving some sampling in-house. Right now, if we take a BOD and TSS sample, we run it to Salem, and then we get the results in 2 weeks. And so in 2 weeks, we know what our water looked like during the month of October, right? And so there are ways for us to do those tests in-house. It's requiring, a little more equipment, a little more laboratory stuff, a little bit more training and learning, and we're getting there. And if we can do them in-house, right, then we can have the samples more readily available, have the results sooner, some of those pieces that will help. Honestly, though, if we can reduce the I&I, that'll be the biggest help. So, as
No.
always.
I appreciate you taking the time to elaborate, because as a council, we see the one end of it, the end result base, but we don't know the day-to-day. And so it's encouraging to hear that we're like recognizing the problem, right? Trying to work towards making it better. Those are the things I think that it's important for us to hear as well. So thank you.
Absolutely.
We had the library report, city engineer billing report, city attorney, planner billing report. Was there any questions, comments, or concerns with any of the reports in the packet? Okay. We will move on to business from the mayor and city councilors. We will start comments for the good of the order with President Melissa Borges.
Nothing to add.
Councilor Shields?
Nothing to add?
Councilor Thompson?
I talked with Tasha about this. The Honor Society kids would really like to help contribute to the city's Christmas tree. And so we are going to make some ornaments, and then they would love to come help put those on the tree. So I'll be reaching out to schedule that. So I was kind of assuming that the thing was on the 5th, but good to have confirmation. Okay.
And I would love it if they could join us and be here for the actual lighting.
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
Great. Councilor Blanco, anything for the good of the order?
Two things.
Yes.
One, I just want to say that after trying to read through the comprehensive plan, I appreciate those of you who spend your days wading through the minutiae of bureaucracy to try to create order out of countless words that actually just seem to avoid meaning sometimes. Dotting I's and crossing T's that make those things difficult to find the meat of meaning. So I just want to say I appreciate those of you who can do that. It's a talent. And secondly, this is election day. And I'd just like to say I'd like all of us to perhaps take a moment and consider that this is an important freedom that we don't want to lose, and we want to support it. And just in consideration of where our country is right now amidst so much confusion. Tomorrow, the 5th of November, one of our cousin country, England, it's one of their holidays called Guy Fawkes Day. And I think it adds perfectly to the fact that this is an election day, because the whole idea has kind of come to mean a day when people everywhere should stand up and resist fascism in any form when it's bearing down on them. And I think we should all remember American traditions and what America does stand for. That's all.
Thank you. And I just have to say that it's interesting talking about the comprehensive plan and the way it's written. It is very, every city in the state of Oregon has a comprehensive plan, and it is very mandated what needs to be in there. And so I just appreciate that all of us, council and staff, and you know, ever, why can't I think of it? John, but
Oh, healthy, sustainable communities?
yes, thank you, has taken so much time because there are certain things that have to be in it and there's certain things that we have to abide by, but we've all worked really hard to make sure that it's still for Amity. And that's not always easy when 85% of it is told to us how it has to look and what it has to say. So, yeah, thank you for the compliment, because between a vast group of people, a lot of time and energy has been put into that, although you might not know it if you were comparing to side by side. Okay. Mayor's report and final comments. I am very low on the report in final comments. I have done the regular representation. I've attended some mayor's meetings. We have a small city meeting coming up. I, again, would be happy to meet with anyone that wants more insight onto the conference sessions that I took and the lots of pages of notes I have. But for this month, I have no official report except our tree planting. We got the native plants planted at the park in the rain. It was the morning after Halloween. It was a little slow and a little miserable, but it was also a lot of fun. And so if you get the chance, go look at the approximately 100 native plants that were planted Saturday morning. That was really cool. And other than that, I have nothing unless there's any questions. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll entertain a final motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:50. Thank you for your patience. Oh, no.